apparent quickly that they would leave. And that's difficult when you have to deal with someone who's like,
Yeah.
I'm only in it for the win. Because I'm sure, as you know, when you first start a regiment and you get that first group of people, it's not like everything's all fine and dandy. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of failure that goes in before you get the first victories.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was like the original question though for that? I was listening to it. But...
So I didn't really pose a question. I was commenting on that. My question would be, to follow up, would be, when you were in the 3eVolt as well, how difficult was it to maintain it? Like, how many hours did you have to put in to be able to maintain the 3eVolt?
Oh man, I was spending like over 100 hours per every 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was spending so much time on the game. I was even making myself a better player. I would literally spend my time on NA1, or I would just go join random TDM servers with my guys, make sure that they're practicing, and I would make sure to practice about 2 to 3 hours a day, and sometimes even more, because we'll do multiple. Back then, it was easy to find events, so sometimes we'll do 2 events per day, and we'll do that for weeks on end, and we had events every day. I was easily investing between 150 to 200 hours with every 2 weeks.
Wow. So you probably got really good, even more so than when you first joined.
Yeah, with all that time, I became a lot better as a player. My leading was pretty good at the time as well. However, that was also before reverse marching was a thing,
Who came up with that, by the way?
Grimsight says he does it, or he has, and I want to believe him, but I don't know what the true story was, because there was a section of time where I was gone. I don't know. Grimsight did tell me that when he 1v1 the 84E, which was the EG regiment, I came from, and NW, and like just NW 9 Mountain Musket, when he 1v1 them, and they played on I think it was on a NA, or it was either EU or NA server. They won one map, and then Aldemar got very upset because I think they reverse marched, killed like half their line, and they won the round. And then ever since then, Grimsight says he's pioneered it. But although I think multiple regiments before Grim had tried to do it, just nobody at the time could really get it down. It was kind of a hard concept at the time to actually like turn your line 180 while marching, because a lot of people, not gonna lie, were a little slow when it came to line movement, and that's why clumping was a big part of the thing, especially back in the day.
That's insane, because for someone who came in as kind of like a new gen, reverse columns, the flanks, those things were already there, right? They're already like engineered in the game.
Yeah, you came in whenever all that was engineered. I came when it was just like, the concept of being a good leader at the time was making sure you weren't the first one to halt. Always just around for that flank.
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, no, it was so easy back then. All you had to do was wait for your opponent to halt and shoot all the shots, because they got very impatient, and just go on their flank and just shoot it. That's what I did every single time. That's how I won every single 1v1, because at the time a lot of leaders would just try to fire volleys, or they would just hold one position and then try to fire and just hold it.
So were they trying to fight in like the way you would in like the Napoleonic Wars at all, or were they trying to fight like based on game mechanics? Does that make sense?
They were trying to play like actual like role playing.
Actual
what's it called? Like,
so then,
volleying. Or
what was
like
the reaction? What was the reaction when people started to like do these new techniques in the game? Were they like banned at first, or what made them accepted?
They weren't banned. To be fair, officer aim was also not banned at the beginning. You could actually shoot the officer. That's why it was you always had to be like, oh shit, I just hope I don't get shot. A lot of the times I got shot during 1v1s, and I always have to get my my second best man and second best line leader always behind me, because if I didn't, then it was game over. Because for the first, I would say 6 to 8 months of NW, OA was fair game. Like, although the leader could complain about it and be like, can you please not officer aim me? A lot of regiments still did it. I, of course, have been victim of it many times, but I will also share the fact that I also told my men to shoot at the officer. It was just fair game. 1v1s have really changed. Like, going back to the whole concept, like, balancing was not a thing. My first really big victory, though, in NW was when the 3eVolt faced against Tico. Tico didn't balance. It was about 20 people versus R12. To be fair, though, we did camp a hill, but we won, I think, 2-0 in maps. And after that, Tico went on a 2-week training period and didn't 1v1 anybody until he felt he was ready. So...
Wow.
Balancing now is much better than it was back in the day, because some regiments could only bring 10 to 12, and you could play all 18 to 20 people if you brought that many.
What? That's so. If the 63 fought like,
Yep, they could bring all 40 to 50 players against your 20 to 30, and you'll get
that's
fucked.
crazy. That's crazy. You wouldn't even need to be good at melee. You just need to have like a. Although I'm sure melee had an impact. Like there might be some clutch rounds, but that brings me over.
It was actually very easy to clutch back in the beginning of NW. Remember, like I said, a lot of the players that did transition from Mountain Musket could not up block or side block against swords properly. So it was very easy. Like, up attacks is basically all you had to do because they are now lethal and people weren't used to it. So just up attack, kill in one stab, and it was really not hard to kill, 8, 10 people in just a single 1v1 by yourself.
Whoa. So like nowadays, is it harder to like melee, you'd say?
Oh yeah. Like today, almost every single person you find on the group fighting server is somewhat decent, and each one of them is about 100 times better than any person really playing during their first year of Napoleonic Wars. The melee skill cap has gone up like 200% since the game came out. Every player now is at least decent. Almost every single player you'll encounter knows how to block. That's the crazy thing. But I think that also comes from the fact that the community numbers and the players really come from the same pool. Like it hasn't really changed too much.
Yeah, that's so it's so nice talking to you because basically what I'm getting is like when I come in, later onto the community, all of this stuff is already figured out. Like I have no grounding for this, and this is why I love doing the podcast because you really get a different perspective on how NW used to be. One of the things that I'm curious is how did the metas kind of like evolve as the game went on?
Okay, so first thing that I did notice was people began balancing. Was one of the first things. So basically that would just allow +1 or even.
You think that'd be so simple? You think that'd be something they just do in the beginning?
A lot of regiments leaders didn't like to sit out all their players, though. It's the thing.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And there was no real what it's called 1v1 leagues at the time, so you just kind of had to go with it. Stuff that changed also. OA was also frowned upon and became almost like a slayable offense, or just like not a reset of a round, but like a slayable offense, and they would still continue the round. But volleying quickly became obsolete. Everyone noticed hey, we should not volley because that's such an inefficient way of playing. Or double ranks was also very popular near the beginning, especially for Prussian regiments who did line events. But it became very apparent that double ranks did nothing. It just made you bigger targets.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think now it's like, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? That's crazy.
Oh yeah, it was just terrible because you just clump. It's basically one giant moving clump, or you stop.
That must be so fun as a skirmisher.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous, dude.
Man, so in terms of the melee, how'd the metas evolve?
The melee, originally when the game NW first came out, the up attack had a longer reach. Longer reach, and it had the same attack speed of the down attack.
So are we talking about NW or Mountain Musket?
NW.
All right, so on NW, what was how'd that kind of evolve, yeah?
So the up attack was, at the beginning, the up attack was extremely fast, and it was also a longer wait. It was a lot longer than the down attack, so everyone was just up attacking. All you had to do is, if someone tried to foot lance you with the down attack, it was so easy just to kill him with an up attack. You could just outreach him easily. Up attacks were very strong during the beginning, but then I think the mods of the game, the people who basically came up with the module, wanted to appease the crowd that was kind of new to melee. So they did slow the up attack, and then they decreased the range. And so that's where the up attack that we now know and love came from. It was after the first 8 months, I think, of NW.
How'd that change the fighting styles?
It was really hard to get into at first. A lot of players wanted to quit because they thought it was. A lot of the good players wanted to quit because they thought it was why are we trying to let the noobs get better, stuff like that. Everyone was a little salty because that's what everybody had been learning how to play as for the first 8 months of the game mod coming out. But it wasn't too bad. Although glancing became a lot easier, which is the reason why glancing is a lot easier now, and also duels are a lot slower now because those up attacks were so strong and so lethal. One smart up attack would kill you.
Oh, oof.
So it was kind of like a very lethal attack, and then just kind of balancing it out. So.
Did they have double blocking back then? By the way, you know what I mean?
No, I do not believe so. They did not.
But you know what I mean, right? You hold your mouse, cancels the stun.
Yeah.
Could have that been possible, or just no one doing it?
No one was just doing it.
I see. All right. So it's not something people develop. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like block chambering, when did that become like a thing?
It was actually in the game the entire time. I actually noticed it pretty early on into the game. So a majority of what I did, and still what I do now, was just blocks, like block stunning. I would just make sure to stun their attacks, and I would just stab them. A lot of players got upset because they didn't know how to play against it. And of course, myself, and APOC were the only ones at the time who knew how to do it. So it was a very cheeky play style, though, and it still is. But a lot more people in the community have adopted it because everybody knows about it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I can't imagine not knowing some of those things. I heard about X glitching. You know, that's not something I ever played with, but what was that?
So basically, so you know how X, changes your musket to shooting or melee mode?
Yep.
So basically, it would make it look like a very weird and almost unseeable feint, because you go straight from shooting mode down into a down attack, and you can release it, and then people can't see it, and it just instantly stabs and kills them.
Oof. I mean, people kind of do that today. Like, you kind of can, right?
You kind of can now, but back then you could not even see like the person tapping X. It would just go from an up attack and then by the time it hits you, it's already a down attack, and you would be like, "What the fuck?"
Could you block it?
Yeah, you can block it, but you had to like kind of like predict it, if that makes any sense. It was one of those things that if you couldn't predict it, then you most likely got stabbed and killed.
Wow. Anything else that was super OP back then that you could do?
Let's see. Not really.
Like when people were group fighting, did they like? I don't know. Like Knight of St. John does this a lot, but he like pushes someone's away and then he goes for backstabs.
So back then, group fighting lines weren't a thing. It was just open melee every single time. So it just really depended on how good the player was. There was no real group fighting style. Like no people trying to get backstab. It would just be some guy just spamming and trying to get kills as fast as possible.
So then, when did those things become a thing? When group fighting lines become a thing?
Group fighting lines didn't really become a thing. I'm saying probably because even with the 12th and the 9Y, it wasn't even group fighting lines. It was still open melee. I would not say until Karth became, the top dog of NA for about 8 months, and he won both seasons of NA and WL back to back. That was when I think group fighting lines became more of a thing, especially because regiments were starting to do group fighting matches instead of 1v1s. Group fighting matches actually never really happened in the beginning.
Oh, so when they started to happen, people kind of developed strategies for that, and then that filtered over into 1v1s.
However, group fighting servers still existed at the time. Even in 2012, when I first came in, EUs had already implemented it. I think it was Diplex. I saw the idea. I got a map from Svensson, and we opened up the very first NA group fighting server.
How full was NA group fighting back then?
It was not too full at first. We were bringing in about 15 to 20 people at maximum, but eventually it got super populated, and the idea, everybody started kind of like wanting to do it. And so
like, could I get on right now? It's 12:37 a.m. and like, would people be on?
No, because people actually got off pretty early.
Did that ever happen?
Every now and then, we'll have like 8 to 10 people on around this time. But that'd be most of the time just people in our own regiment. Because like people went to bed early.
I know the EUs, like the group fighting server for EUs, is like almost always on. Could be because I'm not EU, but like as an NA player, whenever I seem to want to go on in group fighting servers populated with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just back then, group fighting wasn't as attractive as it is now, where everybody loves the idea.
Was dueling a bigger deal?
Yes, dueling was a very big deal. However, first to 7ing wasn't really a thing. It would just be like, let's do like first to 5 rounds, first to 6 rounds, or just like first to 7 rounds sometimes. But dueling was the majority of it. You didn't really try to test your skill through group fighting. It was always like you have something you want to say, or you think I'm bad, then go duel. So it's basically how you did it. It wasn't, and the thing is, the forums wasn't really cancer either at the time, so there was no real banter for the first year or two.
Oh, if people trash talking and saying you're bad.
No real trash talk. No
really?
Real trash talk whatsoever. No.
Wow.
The community was a lot friendlier in the beginning.
I can't imagine that. I'm going to be honest with you, the community, how it is now. How did that evolve? in terms of
It's
the toxicity?
toxicity came whenever there was more good players in the community, and so of course when people either